been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's going on, guys? Tristan and Tony here at the Zero Duck 30 podcast. So today we got on Shiloh Shoppell. I think that's how you say your last name, right?
Shoppell, it don't matter.
Yeah. So Shiloh, actually, I played like Pee-wee football with him when we grew up in Illinois, and we've just followed, my dad and I have followed his journey through the last few years as a crappie fisherman, and he's really running with it and doing some awesome stuff. And as you duck hunters know, a lot of you guys are crappie fishermen, including us. So we just want to get him on here and get some tips from a professional. What's going on, man?
Hey, listen, y'all, get on his Facebook right now, and you're going to poop your pants, because I was just looking at some the other day, and then I was like, dear Lord, look at the gut on that thing. I mean, it was just like I just went to Pasta House type of gut, man.
Oh, that's how we all feel. When I catch a big one like that, it's got a gut on it. It's like, what have you been eating? You're just down there gobbling it up.
So I guess start, man. Kind of take us through, I guess, how'd you get into fishing? Obviously, growing up in Illinois and stuff, and kind of just go from there if you don't mind.
Yeah, tell us who you are, what you do for a living. And I know you said you've only been home 5 days in the last month, but just kind of break it down and help our listeners kind of understand who you are as a person.
So, yeah, as Tristan said, I'm Shiloh Shoppell. I'm living in northeast Alabama on Gunnersville Lake. Originally from Illinois. We grew up playing Pee-wee football. I think a couple of years Tony was our coach, right?
Yeah.
I know at least 2 years, probably all the way through, though, honestly.
Yeah, I broke several blood vessels.
I know, even when you weren't coaching on the sidelines, you were probably still yelling at us, just like everybody else.
That's right.
And we probably didn't even understand what you're saying. We're just going to do what we want to do anyway.
Yeah.
So,
bro, we were preparing you guys for war. I mean, I don't know very many coaches that request let the bodies hit the floor. Come on, when a bunch of 8 and 10-year-olds come running on a football
I know.
field.
Yeah. I think Tony was one that introduced us to High Black. And I'm pretty sure that's why 90% of our parents hated white jerseys. But I mean, that's where it started. I grew up in Illinois. I lived across the street from a pond. So when I wasn't playing football or any kind of sports or at school, I was fishing. So it was every day of the week. And I remember in the summers when we didn't have school or nothing, my parents wouldn't ground me from video games. It was, I'm going to ground you from fishing poles. We're going to put them in our room. So
smart parents.
I know, it was a kick in the butt. So especially having a room that you could see the pond from, it was like, this is stupid. Why am I sitting here? I should be out there catching fish. But so, of course, I figured out how to pick the lock and steal poles while they were at work. But it all worked. And I mean, that's got me to where I am, though. I mean, I did it every day I grew up. And then when I would turn 15, I got a little John boat. And I just started fishing got the John boat. I started fishing every day. When I turned 16, got my license. It's every weekend. I would, did you have homework? No, I'm going to the lake. See you. And that's how it was. And I did that all spring, all summer. So pretty much where I am now. Once I graduated high school, I just continued with fishing and started tournament fishing, and it's led me to where I am. I'm one of the top elite anglers for crappie fishing in the country. There's 50 of us that fish an elite trail. We all had to be invited to fish it. And
wow.
I somehow made the cut. I don't know how I did it, but maybe they see something I don't. I go out there on the water, and most days I don't catch many, but the ones I catch are big, which that's what we're looking for on tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at. And occasionally I do still get fun fish, but not very often.
Man, that's pretty damn cool to hear. Honestly, it's outside looking in. I'm sure you just got to be like, how am I in this situation?
Just do what you love.
my first year on the trail, let's rewind. I was 2023 now?
Mm-hmm.
2020, summer of 2020, I think it was. Yeah, summer of 2020. I had a buddy from Northern Illinois, Decatur, and we had a local or a national trail come to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I called them up. I said, let's go fish this. And it was Thursday. The tournament was Saturday. And they had two divisions. They had pro and amateur. We had never fished one, and we jumped in on the amateur side and actually won the whole tournament. We had the heaviest weight for the tournament on pro and amateur. One day, just looking around. So we didn't fish anything else the rest of the year. We went to the drawing board in the winter, and we fished nonstop. It was every day, daylight dark. Whenever we were both off work, we were meeting at lakes in between and just fishing, getting used to each other in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And our first year traveling and fishing, we got our tails spanked.
Really?
I mean, I went to lakes, and I was like, what the heck? I was getting blown out by like 4 or 5 pounds. It was stupid.
Huh. Damn,
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So that winter, we went back. We went home that off season. We both had boats every day. We were on the water. We were going to new lakes we never seen before, and we really put it together. And then last year we really put the pieces together. And I don't think we had a finish outside of the top 3 all year last year. And we ended up second national points, and then that's what got us to fish the elite trail this year. And then
I'm going to interrupt. Shiloh, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute.
Go ahead.
Honestly, knowing you since you were a kid, I am not surprised at all. Knowing you from the outside looking in, knowing you guys as young people, I just remembered that whenever you decided to whoop somebody's ass on the football field, everyone benefited all the way up to the coaches and your mom, because
I know.
you didn't go hunt. You did not go Shiloh on anybody every game. But when you decided to, bro, people paid a price, and it was like animal mode. I mean, I just remember that. And you know what? What's cool for me is listening to you talk is really seeing you apply what we all saw as adults, and we saw all these characteristics in everybody. But it's interesting when you get our age that you can see those things in people, and just like I've seen things in Tristan, that applies to their success today. You're just born with it, man.
Well, and that's the cool thing with you. I mean, you watched us grow up. I mean, we were knee high pretty much. You get to see the hard work and determination that you've seen us when we were younger develop to where we are now. We're both 26, 25, and that hard work started to pay off. I mean, you knew we had it the whole time, and you sat back at a distance, and you've been able to watch it just kind of develop.
Wow, it's amazing, and you all do the same thing with folks too, and your friends and stuff as you guys develop, But I just want to know: is there ever been a time that you won a tournament and played Cowboys from Hell?
Oh man,
I'm just messing.
I haven't, but it's just like, and then this year we're off to a good start. We've already got 2 seconds. I won down in Florida on the St. Johns River, which Florida's amazing.
Bro, we know the St. Johns.
Yeah.
The St. Johns River is the river in Florida for big crappie.
We're not to interrupt. Like, I want to go back to where you're going with the whole, your story still. But, we spent so much time in Florida. Hell, we lived 15 minutes from the St. Johns River, more of like up near Jacksonville. But like, what part of the river were you fishing?
So we were allowed to stretch. Do you know where Astor is?
No.
It's down towards Palica.
Yeah, Placa.
Placa.
Yeah, Placa is that.
Yep.
So Astor's like maybe 15 minutes south of there.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We're allowed to fish from Astor to DeLand.
Yeah.
The whole stretch of the river from bridge to bridge. I think it's I-4 down there, maybe.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is just south of DeLand. It runs right north of Monroe. we're allowed to fish that whole stretch of river and all the backwater sloughs that run off of it.
Wow.
And if you guys, like you said, you were 15 minutes from there, or you knew the St. John's,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many shallow mud lakes off the St. John's, not even funny.
Man.
Like you could go down there for a week and not fish and fish daylight start for a week and only cover a quarter of the water.
Yeah.
It's
It's wild.
That's part of the problem / challenge, right? Just like duck hunting, you know, what we always talk about in Florida. Well, the only problem with ducks is there's so much vegetation and so much water. I assume that applies to fishing.
yeah.
Oh, it is, and that's one thing I've learned is to break down water so quick. And I've had countless guys get in the boat with me. They're like, and I mean, I'll go to a new lake and I'm like, there's no fish here. I need to go to a whole other arm or a whole other river on the other side of the lake. And they're like, you've been in here for an hour. How do you know that?
Right.
Well, I'm not seeing what I want to see. If I don't see what I want to see, I'm gonna go the other way.
Well,
It's just that's what it is, and that's kind of what happened in Florida. I got into those shallow mud lakes and was trying to fish 5 to 6 foot of water, and I was catching the same dang fish in every lake. Like they were all 120s, 140 pound and a half fish, and I got the wild hair to fish the river, like the main river. And the guy that was with me was like, "We're never gonna catch a fish out here." Well, the first one I caught was a 288. Almost
Wow.
a 3 pound crappie. I'm like, I looked at him. I said, tomorrow, and it was right at dark. I said, tomorrow we're not leaving this river. We're just going to check. We caught 9 fish that second day looking, and I think we had 7 that went for just shy of 17 pounds.
wow.
And they were all 2.5 pound range.
God,
But
dog.
it was
As waterfowlers, we experience all kinds of extreme weather conditions. Stay bone dry and warm with Frog Togs hunting gear. You can check them out at frogtogs.com or at frogtogshunt on Instagram.
wild. But we only caught 9, and I told him, I said, if we can just do 7, because all we need is 7 a day. It's a 2-day tournament.
Yeah.
I was like, all we're looking for is 7 bites. And it worked out really good because we had a cold front come through because it was hot all week, like 75, 80 degrees, no wind, sunny.
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried about fish trying to spawn and drop their eggs. But we had a cold front come through Thursday, and then fish pulled out of the lily pads and everything. And I actually ended up catching like 25 fish each day, all over 2 pounds.
Wow, dude.
Good
think
Lord, dude.
Yeah, I think I won that tournament by 4 pounds.
Wow.
Hey, just to put this in perspective for you, Shiloh, I went and tried a couple times a creek off of the St. John's River to catch some crappie. Tristan was with me, and bro, we caught snakefish
Yeah, so
That place,
or snakeheads.
yeah, that place is like, it'll mess you up.
yeah,
Because it flows backwards, so that's already a negative because that makes me think like I tell people I'm upriver when I'm really downriver,
Right.
mm-hmm.
and for one, you guys that live in Eastern Time Zone, that don't fly with me. That whole I gotta get up an hour earlier. It don't work. It just does not work for me.
Dude.
And go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say with one of the problems we had, in the northern part of the St. John's is like, it's closer to the mouth of the ocean, and
Yep.
depending on like I know Platka because they do a Bass Masters tournament. I think starts like right there in Platka or something. But where we're at, man, like you can fish all day, and to catch a bass or a crappie or something up there, if the salinity is, and like how are you going to check for salinity? You don't know. We're just going out there fishing.
Yeah.
And somebody told me that like after a few years, I'm like, no wonder I'm not catching shit out here because you can catch a redfish in the same water you might catch a bass. Like it's crazy.
Exactly, and that's like even where I was at on St. John's, it's 40 minutes from the beach.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, you're like, you're already fishing brackish water, so
Mm-hmm.
the fish looks dirty, but it's actually really clear. It's just black almost.
Yeah, it's like tea.
It's like tea.
Exactly, and they had 2 hurricanes down there before I went, so I'm running the river, and I'm looking up, and I'm seeing sandbags along people's backyards. I'm like, man, they must have had some high water. Well, to come to find out, a buddy that lived down there, he said the river where we were at there through Platka to the land was actually shut down to idle only 2 weeks prior to the tournament because of water was like 6 feet higher in the trees and stuff.
Wow.
People's backyards.
Wow.
I'm like, there's no way. If there was 3 more feet of water, I wouldn't know where to go because there's just that much. The lily pads, everything else. I mean, where you go one day might be covered up with lily pads. Next day, I'm sure y'all know how that is with ducks down there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You know, you get that because that stuff's just floating mass, really.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, man, we're not even going to let you get through who you are the whole journey because we're going to keep breaking this down because this is very interesting stuff. So,
go for it.
So let's, if you're out there and you're like, hey, man, I'm serious this year. I'm really going to slay some crappie. All right. Well, first of all, you're listening to the right podcast because we got this freaking slayer on here. Shiloh, tell everybody what, you don't have to break down every piece of your gear, but from your boat to what you run on a jig, I mean, can you just kind of like give us more of an overview of that and then we can break down some of those things later?
Oh, for sure. So I run pretty much a bass boat. It's a it's a newer boat. It's a 2020 Falcon 205. So it's a 20.5-foot Falcon bass boat, fiberglass boat with a 250 Merc on it. So when I want to get to point B, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there quick.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need that. Like prior to me fishing like this, I was fishing out of an 1860 G3 with a 70 horse Yamaha on it, and I did just as good. So the whole reason I went to a bigger boat is what we call forward-facing sonar now, and it is eating up the industry. There's no like old school fishing is completely thrown out the window. I had all these theories about crappie and bass before I put this on my boat, and it's broke every theory and myth that I've ever seen or heard.
Wow.
Forward-facing sonar, what it is, it's a transducer that we put on our trolling motor, and it will shoot out in front of the boat 100 feet, 200 feet, as far as you want it. Just you got to get a clear image, and it's actually live, so you can see the fish swimming. You can watch. You can drop your bait right on that fish's head.
Is that similar? Is that similar, Shiloh, to like the A cone that shoots down, but it's kind of shooting straight out like in a cone?
It's like if you were to take a flashlight in a dark room and imagine that dark room being water. That's what that is, pretty much. Is what we're doing, and we can physically, like, we can't see what species it is, but once you've been behind it for so long, you like just snap the finger and you see that fish, you know if it's a crappie, bass, carp, catfish, all that.
Wow.
Are you seeing that 3-dimensional, or are you in distance?
Just distance. And
just distance. Okay.
What it is, it's a cone, like a 15-degree cone that shoots out in front of you. And when I turn my trolling motor, I can pretty much turn that trolling motor all the way around behind the boat and back around to the other side of the boat. So I can make it. What I do is I'll put my trolling motor on 6 or 7 and then start going, 1.8, 1.9 mile an hour, and just fanning that trolling motor back and forth until I see a fish. Now, once I see that fish, I'll go after it and I'll try to catch it. So I'm actually physically able to wash my bait, drop down on that fish's nose, that fish index or come up to the bait and eat it.
Wow.
So,
dear Lord.
Exactly. But I went to the big fiberglass boat because it's heavier and the wind don't blow me around as much. So the big thing I noticed in my aluminum boat when I was fishing in wind or waves or whatever, that front end would come up and just bounce while I was fishing. And what that happened is when that bait would come up, that fish would lose all interest because it's so unnatural. They would just come up, like they would just look at it and then just swim away. So I went to that heavy boat and I don't have that anymore. It just sits there like a rock.
Wow.
So I'm able just to sit flat on the water and pretty much leave it right in their face. If they don't eat it, they don't eat it. I move on to the next fish. But
real quick, I just wanted to bring this up. It was funny when we were talking the other day about this podcast. I was telling them, we were talking about how duck hunters, a lot of us crappie fish, and I was saying duck hunting, and I said crappie hunting, and I was like, shit, I meant crappie fishing. You said something like, oh, the way we do it, we hunt them. And hearing this, I'm like, yeah, you guys are hunting them.
it really, like, if you were like, and Tony, I know you get jitters every time you see a big buck. But and Tristan's the same way. It's like we can judge the size of these fish 60 feet from the boat. So
Wow.
so when we see that fish, it's almost like you have a 180-inch deer 60 yards from you, and you're trying to close that distance to 30 so you can sling an arrow.
All right, listen, I'm going to interrupt this podcast to tell you all about a new technology developed by Tony Vogel. You heard it first here. And from now on, somebody's going to tell me how I'm going to walk through the woods and do the same thing and find big ass deer and just go, whoa, look at the bow on that. That must be a giant, and go chase them.
Now, the real trick would be how to be quiet and get close to them.
Yes. Yes. But I would love to look through the woods like y'all look through the water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just be able to say, bro, look at the size of that deer.
There's times when you're fishing that flooded timber, you're like, man, I'm just like creeping through a forest and just all of a sudden see a big old crappie laying out there and it's game on. It's one-on-one at that point. But, I mean, that's what it's like. It's like spot and stalk. And when you see that fish, you slow way down and you just kind of creep up to it and pray that he doesn't spook and try to get a bait on him. 9 times out of 10, if he don't know you're there, he's going to eat.
Wow.
He just thinks it's a minnow swimming through the water or a cricket or something. I don't.
Goodness.
To the point, there's been times, certain times of the year, where we'll just take something stupid like a plastic bag and cut off a corner of it, put it on the hook, and drop it down there, and they'll eat it.
Wow. So just
It's all about we stopped going like from like there's certain lakes like you guys you're close to Lanier, right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Lanier is super clear, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that like if I was going to fish there, I obviously color's going to mean something there. Like I'm going to use something that looks like a shad or a shiner, or something that's like a bait fish.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to some of those lakes, like where I was just at last week, Mississippi, it's dirty. It looks like you just poured black coffee into a cup. That's what we were fishing, and color doesn't matter as much as profile. And what I mean by profile, it's like big 3-inch, just something that looks like a big shiner or a big minnow to them, instead of just a little bitty hair jig.
Okay.
So color doesn't matter as much as in dirty water as the profile does.
So that's interesting. Just real quick, I'm curious because we when I sent you that picture of those ones we were catching the other day that's in this pond behind my parents' house or lake, and we were just using like shiners, and one of the bigger ones we caught, or the first one we caught was like the biggest one we caught, and I don't know what it weighed, but it was like 13.5 inches or something, and it was on a massive shiner, and I was like, I wonder if like the size has to do with like what these fish are biting on, and is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, for your bigger fish they got those bigger mouths, so they're going to eat a bigger bait. But it hasn't shocked me. I've seen 6-inch fish eat a 3-inch bait, and you're like, how did you even get this in your mouth? but they all like. At certain times of the day, they'll get more aggressive than the others, and not every fish is gonna be as aggressive as the next one. If that makes any sense.
So they kind of got a little personality to them.
Exactly. Like, say you've eaten dinner, but Tony hasn't,
Mm-hmm.
and you throw a giant ribeye out there, Tony's gonna gobble that up. You might just eat it by you.
That's a good
You
point.
know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it is with those fish. But most of the time I run a little bitty 1/32 ounce hair jig, pink and green, with a half-ounce weight above it just to get down to them quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I use that half-ounce weight is, other than getting down to them quick, I see them on that screen, and if they're swimming away from me, I'm going to chase them down and put that bait in front of their face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest reason, just to get to them quick. But I'll use a 13 or 15-foot rod if they'll let me get that close to them. If not, I'll use a 7-footer and cast at them while they're out 40, 50 feet from me.
Right.
But that's really it. There's days that I do go back to old school fishing grass lines. I've got that on Gunnersville, which is awesome, where I can just turn the grass off, go back to a slip fork and a minnow,
Mm-hmm.
in the summer and just fish grass. And most people in Guntersville overlook that. They all go out and fish deep brush piles in 20 to 30 foot of water when there's still a healthy population of fish up in shallower than 10 foot.
That's so interesting, man. I saw something recently with bass that I think it was like a series on TikTok, and like, basically they had tagged so many of these bass because what they were trying to figure out was like, people talk about, and I don't know how crappie are, and maybe you should have some insight on this, but like, basically the whole study was to determine how much bass move like throughout the season, throughout the year when it gets hotter, colder, those kind of things. And they determined, like, basically with bass, they don't move as much as people think they do when it gets hot or cold, which was really interesting.
Yeah, I think I've seen the same thing you've seen. Like, they were actually, I think it was on Toledo Bend, they're actually electrically putting like a GPS monitor tracker on these bass. And it was, I think it showed that the majority of bass that they tag really never moved more than 150 feet from where they tagged them. And this was over like a 12-month period.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So,
yeah.
And they showed the studies on how they position themselves with different temperatures and different weather conditions and everything else, different lake levels, which is neat. I wish they would start doing a lot more of that. That way we could really get an insight.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there's a guy here in Mississippi. He's been tagging fish the last 2 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And when he tags them, if anybody catches them, he actually, if they release that fish, he'll send them a T-shirt or something similar to that.
Oh, cool.
But all he asks is the weight and the length of the fish and where they caught it. That way he knows he can go back in his journal and see what it weighed and how long it was when he tagged it. So he's had and I don't know all his data behind it, but he posts them on Facebook weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are wild. Like, he'll catch a fish one day, and there's probably 30, 40 guides on this lake. And another guy will catch this fish a week later on the whole other arm of the lake, 8 miles from where it was tagged.
Wow.
What?
Now,
In a week.
is
8 miles?
Is that talking like all kinds of species or crappie or what?
This is crappie only.
Wow.
Now, this lake, it does fluctuate water levels from the winter. So, like last week, where we the same lake we had the tournament on Grenada Lake, we were all fishing 2 to 3 foot of water. That's just, the water's coming up steadily every day for flood control. And in the winter, they draw it down. I think it's like 15 or 16 feet, and a lot of that's what we were fishing is nothing but mud. So those fish get pulled from them rivers all the way down near the dam in the winter, and he'll tag a bunch of them in the winter, and then that spring they'll get caught, 12 miles from the dam from where he tagged them, and then it's spawning flat, and it's wild. It's actually really neat what he's doing, and I hope he gets some funding from Mississippi Department of Wildlife to keep doing what he's doing, because I think in the end it's going to help that lake overall.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff, and we've talked to a few different people on this podcast in terms of ducks, and that's the kind of the situation they have set up where there's some funding, whether it be from the state, private institution, the college, or whatever it might be. But I would definitely think there would be a market for that in the fishing community too.
Well, it also goes back to look at the way the flyways have changed over the last, let's say, 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Tony, you remember back, Tristan and I would have been babies, but in the 90s when they were slaughtering ducks on the Mississippi River, 30, 20 miles from us?
Yep.
Wow.
And now those like Stump Lake and Humboldt Slough and those areas up there, they're lucky to kill 5,000 birds out of every blind in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's changed so much. And we've heard the same thing, like even species specific, like canvasbacks, they have done this big giant migratory shift. Something that as you talk made me think, like when you're talking about a very large lake or river system or whatever that you're fishing crappie, are you seeing that these fish basically travel? Like they have these areas they go back to where they were born. Same thing, kind of like.
I wholeheartedly believe that. Like where these fish are, where they spawn at, where they become fry, and they spend majority of their the remaining springs. I think it only takes them 10 days to hatch, maybe out of the nest. So once they hatch, they pretty much just start feeding, just try and get as big as they can, as fast as they can, so they aren't going to get eaten. It's survival of the fittest once they hatch.
Right.
And I think those fry, and then they get into fingerlings. They constantly feed and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I think when that drawdown, which most lakes in the country now, they do a drawdown in the winter to help for flooding in the spring. I think those fish pull out. They maybe won't go far. Some crappie will. You have that odd duck that travels 12 miles or 8 miles every spring, but I think that once summer rolls around and the fall and winter and comes back to spring and they're going to spawn again, I think those hatchlings go right back to where they spawned, in the same area pretty much, and just duplicate what happened last spring whenever they were hatched. That's
interesting. That's very interesting because it makes sense from a theoretical standpoint, because so many other animal species do the same thing, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, let me ask you this. Let's do like a couple-minute commercial on, the journey through the year as you're fishing crappie. So you're right now, obviously it's pre-spawn, spawn, depending on where you're at. But then we're going to get into summer months where it gets hot, and into your falls and winter and stuff like that. Shiloh, can you give us like a 2-minute commercial on how you fish these fish depending on the season?
So the spring, I'm going to look for shallow mud flats with structure on it. So stumps, stake beds, trees, brush piles. And shallow, I'm talking anything shallower than 8 foot. Fish will spawn in 8 foot of water as long as it's clear enough. They'll spawn in 15 foot of water as long as it's clear enough.
Is there a temperature that you're looking for?
Once that water temperature is about 55 degrees, those males will get shallow. They'll start making the nest.
At 55.
Females,
wow.
55 to about 62. That's when I look for them males to really push. You'll see a big wave of male crappie push up, and then those females won't necessarily push up with them. They'll kind of stay back in that 8 to 12 foot range. One day they might be 8 inches under the surface in 12 foot of water. If you got a real cloudy day, they might be 12 foot of water sitting 12 foot deep laying in the mud.
Wow.
That's just, the spring really has a lot to do with the sun, I believe, and muddy water. You can find muddy water in the spring. There's going to be crappie. There's just, I haven't figured out why, but there always is. And then going in, you kind of get like a 2-week window right after the spawn, and that water temperature is about 70. Those fish will kind of pull out, and after they've laid their eggs, and it'll be really, really bad fishing. It just is. It's kind of recuperating. They just laid pretty much half their body weight or a quarter of their body weight out of their body into that nest, and they're just going to go lay out there for a little while. And then they kind of feed back up. The summer will be good. And that summertime water temperatures, if it gets hot, water's going to get hot. Like I said before, a lot of people go deep, but you don't have to. You can typically stay shallower than 15 foot all summer long, catch fish, good crappie, good eaters at least. And then once that water starts getting cooler, the fall kind of kicks in, and they'll start chasing shad schools. Once it gets back down around 70, because your summertime water temp usually hangs around 82 to 86 surface temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And as they start dropping back down about 72 to 73, once it starts getting about there, I'll start looking for shad schools and looking for crappie around shad, anywhere from 20 to 2 foot of water.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's kind of where they'll be. And then you get into the dead of winter, and that's, people think they got to go way out deep to catch fish in the dead of winter. But if you start looking at shallow mud flats where you think those fish are going to spawn out. I've actually caught them in spawning grounds in December, sitting 12 inches under the surface in muddy water with a sunny day. And what those fish are doing is they're coming up to the surface and they're just sunning. Like you get it. Those deer in Illinois, I'm sure you've seen it. And deer in Illinois, they'll get on that, what is it, the east facing slope.
Yep.
When that sun's rising, they're bedded down, soaking up that sunlight.
They'll do south and east. Yep.
And that's what the fish do. They'll come right up to the surface and just sit there. They'll just, if you get a bait on their nose, they'll smash it because they're not going to miss that opportunity to feed while they're already sunning. So it's pretty much putting a tanning bed out there, and they're just going to soak it up.
This is so. This is cool. So darn interesting to me, Shiloh. I'm sitting here as a 50-year-old guy, and I've dismissed this whole understanding of fish all my life. I'm having like an epiphany.
When this forward-facing sonar came out, I was like, it can't change that much. I was totally wrong. And anybody that tells me that, you can't always catch a forward-facing sonar. Well, you're right, you can't. Because there are days that fish just will not eat. I don't know why, but they just won't. It doesn't matter what you put in front of them, they will not eat it. And then there's days you put a plastic bag on it, they'll eat it. Wow. I don't get it. We've had last week, Wednesday, I had something happen on the boat that I've never seen before in my life. So we're on Grenada, free fishing, flat calm conditions. There's not a ripple across the surface. And I see a fish on forward-facing sonar. We're in about 4 foot of water, and this fish I'm looking at the surface to see if I can see it at this point. That's how high up the column it is. I dropped my bait down on its nose, and my buddy who's fishing with me actually seen the fish come up to the surface and shoot water like a bass blow-up would on top water.
Wow.
That crappie actually did that. I stayed on it with forward-facing sonar while it did it, and it swam about 10 feet and stopped. And I went right back over to it and caught it. It was at 245.
What?
Almost a 2.5 pound fish. Spit water.
Do you want coffee that doesn't suck? Get the Duck. Dirty Duck coffee is made specifically for the waterfowl enthusiast. Enjoy flavors like Morning Wood, Dark Dynasty, Cinnamon Teal Snickerdoodle, and First Flight to unlock the flavor that you'll enjoy in the blind for years to come. Our friends at Dirty Duck Coffee Company are now offering all Zero Duck 30 followers a 15% discount when you use code ZeroDuck15 on your next order.
Like it was blown up on the surface on a shad, like a bass would, went 10 feet and sat 8 inches under the surface. I went over there and caught her. And when I caught her, when she ate it the second time, she actually swirled on the surface. She rolled on it. This is a crappie. These are crappie. Usually you're like, crappie don't feed like that.
Right.
Usually it's bass that feed like that. And all realistic, you've thrown a buzz bait, a spook, or a glide bait, and you're watching bass come up and eat.
Right.
These were crappie. I'm like, this is wild. If I lived there, you could just film all day long and have a blast. I mean, it's nuts. Those fish over there, they're a different breed. Anywhere in the country, nowhere in the country compares to that one lake. It's wild.
Wow.
Where's your favorite place to fish on this planet?
My favorite place for big crappie in this country is Millwood Lake in Arkansas. That lake, no one fishes it. It's nothing. It's about the max depth that I've ever seen is 13 feet.
Oh, we might need to beep this out because we have some Arkansas duck hunters.
It's going to get its reputation this year. We have an elite tournament coming up there in April, so it's going to get its name put on the map for sure. It's one of them tournaments that it's going to take 17 to 18 pounds a day on 7 fish to win for 2 days. You're going to have to do that for 2 days.
Wow.
But that lake, it's once you get in 13 feet, it's just like right out in front of the dam. Once you get a mile from the dam, it's nothing but 6 foot of water, the whole thing.
Wow.
And them fish, they're not spooky. They sit, and it's full of standing timber, like good hedge trees, hardwoods.
Mm-hmm.
And them fish, they'll nose right up on that timber, and they don't get scared of it. You can go right up to them, drop your jig in front of them. They'll eat it, move on to the next fish.
Wow.
It's the only place, and I guess it's because of pressure. Most lakes nowadays get a ton of pressure, but that one lake, it's unreal. The amount of 2 to 2.5 pound fish in that lake, it's crazy.
That's awesome, man.
I used to take a pair of guys from Illinois every year down there, and the final year the limit's 30 per person. And I think we left one little creek with 88 fish.
Wow.
Over a pound and 3/4.
Dude.
And they were on a meat run. They didn't care how big they were.
Mm-hmm.
When I was so tired of cleaning fish that last afternoon, they're like, "Are we gonna go back out in the morning?" I'm like, "We're supposed to leave tomorrow at like noon to go home." They're like, "So we want to go back out after?" I'm like, "I really don't want to clean fish anymore."
Yeah.
I mean, when you clean 88 fish by yourself on a picnic table, you're tired.
Dude, I believe it.
So, but that lake, that's probably my favorite lake in the country.
Wow. That's
style of fishing it is.
That's awesome, man. Is there something to, like, I mean, I've always heard with fish, like, you know, the further south you get, like, traditionally, like, the bigger the bass, the crappie, all they're going to be.
For sure.
Okay, I gotcha.
You still have your lakes in the south that, for some reason, don't produce any big fish, but they should. But, like, I even noticed it back home. You know, I always called it Highway 64 fish. Any fish north of 64 across southern Illinois, it wouldn't take very much weight to win a tournament. But when you got south of 64, you're going to need a pretty good back fish.
Wow.
Same thing with down here is, you know, back home, you know, when I say home, I mean Illinois, it would take, you know, a good springtime tournament about 11 pounds to win. Northeast Alabama, if you don't have 13 pounds, you're not going to be in the top 5.
Wow.
And Mississippi, if you don't have 15, like I put together 31 pounds of fish last weekend, and I came in 16th.
Wow.
To be in the, I think it was to be in the top 8, you had to have over 18 pounds first day, at least 17 pounds on day 2.
Was that the one you posted about where, like, after, like, day 1 it was like not looking good, and then by day 2 you ended up in 16th? Yeah,
we jumped. We were sitting in 32nd after day 1 and jumped to 16th after day 2.
That's awesome.
But we fished a little bit better on day 2 than we did on day 1. Day 1, it was god awful. I don't know what we could have done to make it different. We missed a couple fish. We just didn't fish as good as we should have.
Huh.
But that's kind of what it is. The further south you get, the bigger fish get. Kind of like the deer. The further north you get, the bigger they get.
Right. Yeah. It's like the mammals. The further north you get, usually.
Yeah, and it's good. But
now, as far as like the Elite Series and the other series you fished before, is it kind of like a situation like the NASCAR, like, you know, system, like, you know, how many tournaments you place so and so in, you gain points throughout the year, and then
you can do each level.
That's kind of where it's going.
Okay.
So this is the first year for the Elite Series. You had to have at least a pretty good track record to get into the Elites. And now I know if you don't, there's 50 of us total. I know if you don't place within the top 40 guys, you're going to get dropped. You're not allowed to be in the Elites the next year.
Okay.
And I think they're going to bring the top 5 from each other national trail in to the Elites next year. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just hoping to stay above that top 40, which I should not have a reason not to unless I blow my motor up. But the lakes that are coming up are lakes I feel good on. They're great fishing lakes, and I've got some history on them, so I should be all right.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there's 4 national trails now. It's kind of getting out of hand how many
Wow.
national crappie trails there are. We've got National Crappie League, Crappie Masters, Crappie USA, and American Crappie Trail.
Well, dude,
So those 4, if you count the elites, that makes 5. So
wow.
it's a little wild, and that was one of the big reasons I moved south. Other than just to get out of Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
was I'm closer to a lot of tournaments now where I would be driving 6 hours. I'm only driving 3, which makes a big difference to being able to stay home on Sunday or driving all day Sunday.
For sure.
No, we feel that from a duck hunting perspective. I mean, you're sitting there fishing these fish for way more months a year than what we duck hunt. And
yeah,
I mean, part of it's got to be, I know you love what you do, but there's a grind perspective side of that.
Yeah, it wears you down. It wears you down mentally. It really does. And I mean, I left the 2nd of January and I left the 2nd of January and got home the 14th. And I think I've gone on 3 10-day stretches already this year.
Wow.
And it's just, it mentally wears you down. Like, I was at Mississippi all last week. I was home Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. I was home. I'm getting all the honeydews done.
Yeah.
I'm now I'll be tonight, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday. I'll be home for a day, and then I have a 10-hour drive to Oklahoma Monday, and I'll be there for a week.
Dude, I don't know how you do it, because after about 4 days, I'm already like homesick, like ready to.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be one of the key differences between somebody at an amateur level and a professional level, Shiloh. I mean, obviously, through all of your experiences, you've became this very successful fisherman, but on the back side of it, it's kind of like what we call the filming side of what we do so much when we're pulling these videos and doing the podcasts and the things that we do is we talk a lot about how, it's not always fun. It's not, sometimes it's a job and it grinds. And Tristan and I have many times looked back and said, hindsight was 2020 and we should have filmed that, should have done that. But it was because the burn was setting in, and somebody like yourself that's out there doing that. I mean, talk about how do you overcome those things?
It really does. I mean, first off, I got to thank my wife on that. She, when I go to these places, I call her every night, or she'll call me and, did you find any fish? Well, no. We'll go back out there and find them. She has my back 100%, and that's the biggest thing, is having her there. Other than that, I mean, Tony, my mom,
what a cheerleader.
Oh my gosh. There's times I think she would have come out there on that field just to whip us sometimes.
No, I'll tell you your mom, yes.
Well, and she's always known, I mean, you knew her, she's always had my back in anything I've ever done.
Yep.
Regardless. So when it gets tough, I'll call her and she'll kind of tell me, go do what you do. You go with your gut and do what you do. And that's really what it is. And, being a tournament fisher, you kind of get into a groove. And that's kind of what happened last year. I fished to my strengths. And I started off the year with a win at Weiss Lake. And it just kind of fell out I had a lot of confidence in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where I'm still at now. I still have a lot of confidence just from that win in 2022 in March.
Yeah.
I just kind of built on it. And when you get, it's like a day you go out and you kill a 4-man limit of ducks. Well, you know what you're looking for now, so you've got that confidence, and you're gonna scratch out some ducks every day. But tournaments, it really is. It's a grind. It mentally drains you, and it's not always fun. And that's what a lot of people see. They see that social media post or the the Crappie Masters episode where guys are having fun, they're smiling and catching big fish, but behind that is late nights at a hotel room trying to fix a transducer on your boat or figure out why your motor's not pumping water out, or running back to the boat ramp changing prop out because you bent it running to where you're trying to get to. None of that's covered, and that's what wears you down. Is you constantly got maintenance to do, and the long hours at the hotel room retying rods and trying to figure out where trying to break down 20,000 acres in 2 days. You can only do so much. So that's kind of where it wears you down, and not every day's good. I've had days where free fishing I don't catch a single crappie, and I'm go back to the hotel room or wherever and call my wife, call my mom, and they're like, just keep your head on straight, you'll figure something out. And the next day I go somewhere else and I find a winning pattern and catch those fish.
There really is so many similarities, man, when we're sitting here listening to, you talking about crappie fishing to how this translates to duck hunting on public land. I mean, there's so many different ways that, this day the duck's like this, they don't like this, or you're scouting and you don't see anything, and then the next day you're in the same hole and you kill ducks. There's so many different parallels where it's like you just gotta, it's the old saying, right? Like you can't kill them on the couch, can't catch them on the couch. Like you gotta get your ass out there and just, do
the work,
figure it out.
You gotta do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Hard work pays off. That's what it is. And that's what I tell people all the time. They buy the same stuff I have on my boat. They're like, well, why aren't we catching fish? Mm-hmm. Well, I've put countless hours in learning this stuff, learning how to do it. You're just not going to go out there and bam, be fishing your line. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
You got to go out. You got to go out and just work your tail off at it. And like, it took me 6 weeks to get good, and just to even drop my bait on a fish's nose. And I didn't care if it was a carp or a crappie or whatever it was. I didn't care. Mm-hmm. And it's where I am now, and that was 3 years ago. And now I'm competing with the top guys in the country with crappie fishing. So,
wow.
Dude, that's go ahead, Tony.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, hearing you talk about, the grind and all that stuff, I don't want to dismiss that. Not very often do I have good reading comprehension, but I have good hearing comprehension. And what I'm hearing you say, Shiloh, is that you've got a great support system, and that's what I think we need to point out to anybody that's trying to do what you do or do hunting on a professional level or whatever it is that, number one, you have to have somebody by your side that supports you, but they got to be there for you when you're going through those tough times.
Oh, for sure. Like if you don't have that person there, you're already finished. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
The same with if you're going to fish these tournaments and you're broke to begin with, you're never going to make any money. That's just how it is, because you're going to be scraping up your last dime just trying to find fish, and you're not going to be able to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Tony just said, having that support system, that's huge. Because anytime you pick that phone up, call somebody and they answer, it makes you feel good. It makes you know that you have somebody you can rely on. And other than my mom and my wife, sister, my in-laws, my aunt and uncle, fishing these trails, I've got, like I said, I stayed with 5 guys last week in Mississippi. I've built a pretty good friendship with, 10 to 15 guys on these trails, to where if I'm out there free fishing and I break down and I'm 20 miles from the boat ramp, I could call them and they'll be like, I'll be there as soon as I can, and I'll fill you back in and help you get your boat on the trailer and try to figure out what's going on. And that goes for all of us. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a phone call, hey, I can't find fish. What's the deal? And I'll tell them, hey, I caught a bunch of eater fish over there. There might be some bigger ones. Let's go have at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've built a pretty good friendship with these guys, to where now we're all in Airbnb Airbnbs and VRBOs, and we're not spending $1,000 a week just to stay at a hotel. And we're all, we take turns cooking each night.
That's awesome.
And these aren't just guys from, around me. I've got friends in Indiana, Texas, Oklahoma, all over the country now. And just to think I was I'm from some little town in Illinois that no one knew me, to where I've got somebody from Oklahoma calling me saying, "Hey, congratulations last weekend."
That's pretty damn cool.
Wow. Man, I was sitting here listening to you talk about this, and Tristan saying that earlier about the similarities between us and duck hunting, and I got to know, one of the big challenges that we go through as duck hunters on public land is there's this balance, right? There's this like a teeter-totter of, there's people on this side, or let's say a fence. There's people on this side of the fence that are challenging and assholes. And then you have this other side of the fence that we're trying to change by showing the reality of duck hunting is that we can all work together to be better. And we don't have to like do burnouts and at the boat ramp and all these different things.
No.
That same thing goes on in fishing, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get nasty looks on the water from, retired guy that's out there just trying to catch a mess of fishes for, to take home for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I look over to my partner, I'm like, this guy is so uncalled for. Like, that doesn't need to be happening. If we all work together, it's going to go way smoother.
Yeah.
Same at boat ramps or wherever. That's just how it is. And honestly, the most hated guy out there, if I've seen him broke down on the lake, I'd still turn around and pull him in, because I don't want him going and telling somebody else, that guy's a douchebag. He drove right by me and didn't help me.
Right.
Well, normally that guy's going to say, well, yeah, because everybody hates you.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how I am. I'd rather make it to where there's more positives about me than negatives.
Right.
Guys are going to go out there and go like, hell, we seen him and he gave us, 500 yards. Because in reality, these lakes are huge, but they fish small. A lot of these guys, we all find the same fish, so we're all fishing pretty close to each other. So we're trying not to cut each other off. We're trying to, keep our distance, but, we end up getting close to each other every now and then, and people get talking, and that's just rumors fly, and you know how rumors get. Once they start, they just go downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would imagine you'd want to do everything you can to put that good reputation of yourself out, because being a good guy, you'd never want it to be twisted.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like if you guys hunt public land a lot. If you see a group of guys that've been killing ducks out of this hole for last week, and you're not going to try to get out there and get to them before they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, they've worked hard to scout those ducks and find them and hunt them. You want to go find your own thing.
Yeah.
So, and then you're going to get the repetition for hole sitting if you go out there and sit on their hole. So
right.
Shot chasing, hole sitting. Yep.
Exactly. And that's kind of how it is. And if I see some people in an area, I'll typically try to go the other way, because I just don't want to be around them, and I want to find my own fish.
Sure.
And I mean, that's how it is for most tournaments. If I know somebody that lives on the lake I'm going to next, and they call me and they're like, well, we were catching fish up this creek, I'm kind of like, well, thanks. I didn't really want your info, because now I know there's fish there, and I wanted to go find them myself.
Right.
So, and now I've got that weighing in the back of my head, when I already had a game plan for the next 3 days of pre-fishing, and you done messed me up. So that's just how it goes. But going back, it's the support system, and meeting. And the next thing I'll say is sponsorships. Going out there and talking to these companies that will actually help you is unreal. I've got some great companies behind me that actually help me do what I love to do, and it's kind of nice.
Man, that's something that I want to get into more about, because it's I'll just tell you a little background on like how we approach these things, and just by hearing that statement from you, it sounds like you take a very similar approach, which I want to get into. But you know, the companies that like we work with sponsorship wise, or if we're just brand ambassadors or whatever it might be, it's like, you know, from our perspective, it's like, you know, these companies get reached out to by, you know, everybody and their brother, and it's like, when we go to companies, it's like, you know, hey, you know, this is what we do. It's kind of who we are. Like, we like to have phone calls with people and be like, you know, look, this is what, if we're using your product and we believe in it, like, you know, we're going to talk about it on the podcast. You're going to see us wearing it in the video. Like, it's, we don't, there's a lot of people out there, man, that like chase these just like companies or whatever to be sponsored by, and then don't do anything to support them or build a relationship with them.
So that's where we're having the proper problem in the crappie world. There's a group, probably about the elite guys. There's 50 of us here, and we're all fighting for sponsorships. Well, there's 400 tournament crappie fishermen that all want sponsorships too. So we try to separate ourselves from them, but a lot of these companies now, they're just throwing out, well, you can be pro staff and you can be pro staff, and you're just another number to them. And they're giving you 30% off. Well, when you're tournament fishing and you're driving across the country 2 hours, or you're driving to Oklahoma 10 hours and paying a $1,500 entry fee, 30% off is not doing anything for us. You know, they're just charging you dealer costs for these baits or whatever. And that's where crappie fishing messed up. Is they just, everybody and their brother gets a sponsorship for 30% off, and it really hurts the guys that are trying to, you know, make a living at it.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that, man.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's come to, and we're working. I kind of took a different approach this year to start looking outside the fishing industry. You know, I've talked to, they're kind of still the fishing industry. You got direct waterfowl. I'm sure you guys know them. Oh yeah. I got on with them this year, and I still have my regular fishing sponsors, but like State Farm, they sponsor me. They give me a check each year, and
that's great.
That's kind of what it's coming down to is we're starting to look outside the sport. You know, dealerships, all over the thing. You know, your hometown restaurants, any, you know, if they. And what we're doing for them is we're giving them a spot on our jersey, a decal on the boat and truck, and with the elites, they're actually, you've seen it like Bassmaster Live where they're on TV. That's kind of where the elites are going now. So they'll actually see on TV and firsthand guys crappie fishing using their product. So we're actually starting to get that stuff out there now, where before it was just social media.
I think that's really smart what you said about, like, you know, looking at some other, you know, companies that, you know, are kind of looking for the opportunity to get outside of their, you know, realm of what they do, as far as, you know, working with companies, because one of the big reasons, I know, you know, Frog Togs from the fishing industry, right?
Yep. Frog Togs is another one.
So we approached them because, you know, they're so heavy in the fishing industry, but we noticed that they, you know, do have a duck hunting side of things, and they make waders, and, you know.
Well, it just, the first thing we saw, breathable waders, I was like, dude, Frog Togs. Because
versus
honestly,
neoprene.
Versus neoprene. But it really started way before that, is when somebody said about rain gear. They said, have you tried that breathable stuff? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I've only used ponchos and plastic, and it's hot, you know? And I got a hold of that stuff, and I was like, get out, dude. But anyway, Tristan, sorry.
Yeah, so, you know, that was a perfect situation on what you're talking about, Shiloh, where we're like, you know, looking at what things, you know, we do and we use. And actually, like Tony said, we were consumers of Frog Togs first, but that was a company we reached out to, like, hey, you know, this is what we do. We'd love to work with you guys. And it just started with a, you know, message, and then turned into phone calls and that kind of thing. And now we have a relationship with them, because they're a company that, you know, is a big fishing company that has a hunting side that was really trying to ramp up their hunting stuff again, you know?
Right.
Exactly. And like what you said, Tony, it's breathable, and you're in the South, so you don't need the thick, heavy neoprene waders. You need something that you can sweat in, but you're not going to die trying to sweat in.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Craw Talks take off with that, because I mean, you got, Mississippi, and I'm sure you guys hunt ducks around the house, don't you? Georgia.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you got Georgia, and I know it's hot in Florida.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be out there wearing neoprene waders. You'd be wearing in Illinois in December in Florida.
Right.
You're gonna die of dehydration, and you're not even gonna be done. You're not even gonna be done setting up decoys in the morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and let's give credit to some of those folks that support what we do, and on your side and our side and stuff too. That it's those little things, right? It's those little things can make or break a hunt or a fishing tournament, I'm sure. And it's why I upgraded my boat to a gator tail. It's why I went with a War Eagle hull. I mean, all of these things, and I'm putting on some big names there, but I'm saying in your industry, it comes down to how you tie your knot. if you do or don't.
It comes down to how you tie the knot. Honestly, it comes up to how you wake up in bed in the morning. Honestly, I mean,
yeah.
If I get down to it, if I wake up on the wrong side of bed, I can tell it's going to be a bad day already.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's just how the morning goes. And, we use rain gear probably half the year, if not more than half the year. I know in the summer, I wake up on cooler mornings when you still got that dew on the boat and stuff. I don't want a wet butt. So I'm wearing my rain gear till at least 9 o'clock in the morning in the summer.
Right.
So, and, I'm not wearing the tops. I'm mainly just wearing the bibs, but I pretty much live out of that stuff, 9 months out of the year. So you have your rain gear, your coffee, and the graphs on the boat, your rods, your reels.
5 hours Red Bulls.
Honestly, exactly.
What's a starter pack look like for a crappie fisherman there, Shiloh?
Well, about 6 months ago, it was a can of chew, coffee, weatherproof, rainproof boots, and bibs, and then typically a Star Crunch and a sweet tea. That was about it. But since then, my wife, she's convinced me to quit some of those habits. So now it's really just coffee and, maybe a Pop-Tart or a biscuit, egg, and cheese sandwich or something at the gas station in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting better. But the starter pack for the morning for crappie, you never know, honestly. You can wake up. I've got a buddy, we're in Florida. I hate saying this because if he listens, he's going to kick my tail here in a couple of weeks. Together. But we woke up pre-fishing, and he was tired. I was tired. We've been going. It's like our 7th day straight. And I made a pot of coffee, and I poured myself a cup, poured him a cup. He said, go back in there and give me a splash of bourbon with that. So the starter pack that morning was, I think he had 2 cups of coffee, and the second cup, I think he split it half and half, coffee and bourbon. And then I think he ate 3 Star Crunches and zebra cake. So that morning was a little different. But you never know. It just depends on where you're at and what's going to happen. If you wake up good, you feel good, the fishing's going to be good. If you wake up in a bad mood and you're negative and you're just got that piss poor attitude, that's how it's going to be through all day. And I'm sure you got the same duck hunting too. If you feel like you got a good setup, good spread, and feel good on the call, and you can work ducks, you're going to shoot some. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're got your piss poor attitude, you're not blowing your call, and this is stupid, you're not going to shoot ducks.
Well, I've always had this saying: is if you can't go for gold, why go at all? I mean, exactly. Really, it is, and it's tough. I consider myself a very positive mental attitude type of person. I mean, I've been that way all my life. I studied it a lot when I was like y'all's age and stuff. And it really is. And I think it was, I think a guy whose name is Norman Vincent Peale that said your attitude is the altitude in life. I mean, it really, your attitude makes such a big difference in everything that you do. And I think it's important that you mention that. And that kind of ties to the whole support system grinding through thing that we were talking about.
It is. Your attitude plays more into it than you would think. A lot of people, you can always go out and catch fish, but when you look back at that perspective and you're out there catching fish, having a good time, you're going to remember that 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Like, hey, I remember when I was up in this creek catching these fish on a sunny day or a rainy day, and I was drinking coffee, having a good time, in a good mood. Whereas, you're out there and you're not catching anything and you're pissed off. 5 years from then, you're not going to remember that. But each time I go, as soon as I get in the boat, I forget everything that is on land. It's just me, the water, the boat, and the fish, and a positive attitude.
Yeah.
I think that's what's helped me do what I've done. Is I've just, all the stress and the daily crap that you deal with, when I get on that boat, it's gone. I could care less. I throw the phone in the console, and there's only 2 people I'm going to answer that phone for, and generally it's going to be my mom or my wife.
See, that's such an important point, man. Like, with so many like different outdoor pursuits, like, I got a tattoo that says, it's by Fred Bear, and it says, nothing clears a troubled mind like shooting a bow. Which, to somebody that has nothing to do with outdoors, they're like, that's kind of stupid. But if you think about it, like, when you're hunting and it's just you and that bow, you have nothing else to think about.
Well, it's like Drew said, the first time he shot a bow, he goes, our buddy that I introduced into archery first, before hunting, he just goes, dude, the reason why I love it so much is because when I do it, it's just me and the bow.
Yeah.
To piggyback on it.
And that's kind of what you're saying with the fishing, man. You just tune everything out.
Exactly. And I've got buddies, they're like, well, why do you fish by yourself so much? Well, for one, it's just me and the boat, me and the fish. Mm-hmm. There's no one to tell me to go, hey, you need to go over here, or hey, you need to go over there. It's my decisions. If I make the wrong decision, I'm going to learn from it. Okay, well, 2 years from now, when I'm out here in Joe Blow Creek and I know, hey, don't go over there. There's no fish there. I've done that before.
Yeah.
I'm going to go somewhere else. And that kind of rolls back into tournament fishing. I got a buddy that fishes with me, and about a month ago we won a tournament on Wise, and it rained heavy Friday before, and I knew the current on the main river was going to get blown out where I like to fish, and it was about 12 o'clock. I told him, I said, I got a feeling. I said, we're going to run there. We're going to spend 30 minutes there. If they're there, they're there. If not, they're not going to be there. But it was just a gut feeling, hey, run up this other river, check it. And I got about halfway up the river, and I looked down at the water, and it went from clear to muddy. And I turned and looked at him, and we're still running 48 mile an hour up the river. I said, it's going to be on. And I went up to a waypoint I marked almost exactly a year ago. Mm-hmm. Sat the boat down, pulled up to that waypoint, and stuck a 2.5 pound fish. And he looked at me and said, how did you know that was going to happen? I said, I didn't know the fish was going to be there, but I know I've been in here enough to know what this muddy water and this rain was going to do. And I had, it was just a gut decision. My gut was telling me, hey, you need to go up that river and just check it. Even if it's 15 minutes, you can make up 15 minutes going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's all it was. And we ended up winning that tournament, I think, by about 1.5 pounds.
Wow.
But we went up there and we upgraded 4 times from 1 o'clock till 2:30. So, it made a big difference. And a lot of it comes back to gut decisions during tournament day. I've had days where I haven't even fished an area, but something told me, go check it real quick. Mm-hmm. And I sat down there and threw the trolling motor in the water and caught 3 fish over 2 pounds. So, and that comes from time on the water too. You know, I've learned how the fish behavior is, why they're moving there, and what they're moving there for. So
Yeah,
that's kind of that kind of goes back to the hard work of spending so much time on the water, knowing what those fish are going to do.
yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there's no, YouTube video or, thing you can buy to replace that hard work. And that's so true with so many different things, whether it be deer hunting or duck hunting. We see it all the time. Like, and we try to pay respect to that. Like if we go and hunt a new piece of public land in Arkansas, like we typically plan, like if we're going to do that, we're going to take a week to do it. We're going to plan, like you pre-fish, we're planning on scouting for 2 or 3 days or scout hunting, because it's just like, that those local boys know what's up,
Yeah.
Yeah. And those 2 to 3 days, you probably won't even, uncase your shotgun because you're spending time driving around looking
right
the entire time. Or you might uncase it and you might just be sitting in the woods with a set of decoys watching where birds are going and where they're coming from.
Sure.
And that's the big thing. I mean, there was about a 2.5 year stretch where I was waterfowl hunting up north, and I had some great teachers up there, but I learned a lot just in, the first 3 weeks I did it. I was like, holy crap, there's a lot more to this than you really think. It's not just throwing decoys out and being lucky. These guys are knowing when these birds move, and they're getting off work at 6:30 in the morning, going and watching a pond for geese and seeing what time those geese are flying in there.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, there's so much hard work behind it. You can't take that for granted. That's the big thing. Is any guy that I've been beat by that, if I know I just got outworked, all the respect to them in the world. They deserve it, because when I go out and fish a tournament, I'm going to give it, as Tony would say, I'm going to give 110%. I'm going to beat you. If I can beat you, I'm going to. But if I get outworked, I get beat, then I'm going to shake your hand at the end of the day, and I'm not going to go and badmouth you. It's just, you outworked me. That's how it is.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that you say that. I mean, I wish there was more of that attitude in public land duck hunting, as far as like, there's a lot of people that are like that, but there are some people that get salty about certain things. And, you talk about the little things that separate, like a fishing day like you, where you have a feeling because of, stuff that you've seen. It's like when we're still learning all the time with duck hunting, like you were talking about. And, we do stuff in Arkansas where it's like, we think we're doing the right thing, and then somebody says, well, maybe you should have been 10 yards off those trees, and then, had half as many decoys and put them this way or whatever. And it's like, to have that knowledge of just being there so much that you've seen different scenarios and know to like, hey, maybe you should try this. Like, those are the things that if you're inexperienced, like we've been before, you don't know to do, and it takes time to learn those things.
Man, going back on that, I spent so much time in bait shops growing up, especially when I got into high school and I had a driver's license. I was always at the bait shops, tackle shops, and there'd be a group of old timers there on a Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon drinking a pot of coffee. And old timers, I mean, guys that fish Wednesday nighters for bass fishing, only crappie fishing in the spring, but just being in the shop and listening to them talk, I learned so much. And hats off to those guys. I mean, they did it with no electronics and aluminum boats, and they went fishing. That's how it was. It's hard to, it's hard to put a price on that knowledge that they had. You can't just pay them for it. Just standing around in a bait shop, listening to them talk, telling you how they did it, and they may tell you, well, hey, in that creek, there's a ditch that runs up this side that's 6 foot deep, and the rest of it's 3 foot. And this creek's not on map. That ditch isn't on any map, and you go there, and that ditch is there. And it's full of fish.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times it's happened, and it's like, holy crap, I've gone by this 200 times. I never even knew this was here.
Yeah.
So,
well, and let me ask you this, Shiloh. So, on that note, talking about all the different places that you fish, across the country. You know, just like our partners at Huntwise are offering an exclusive discount for Zero Duck 30 followers. As an elite member, some of the features you'll immediately gain access to are Huntcast, Windcast, peak kill times, property lines, owner information and phone lookup, 250 map layers, unlimited offline maps, 3D maps, social media, and on top of it all, save up to 50% off some of the top hunting brands in the industry. Download and explore the #1 hunting tool set today and save 20% by using code DUCK30. We duck hunt across the country. One of the most interesting things that we have learned through this experience is, and I think Ramsey Russell calls it, he goes, I like going there and playing their game. You know, do you find the same thing in fishing where you go to, say, this little redneck town, wherever, and you're going there for a crappie tournament, and you're sitting there at a greasy spoon, you're listening to old timers talk about the way they play the crappie game there versus the way you play it in Florida or whatever? Is the same hold true with crappie fishing? I mean, do people play a different game, and do you find that consistent?
They do. I mean, each lake has its own. So what I've learned here the last couple of years is each lake has their own little group of anglers that's their lake. They know it well, and if you're going at some gas station's got breakfast, and you can sit there and eat breakfast, and there's 4 or 5 guys there cutting up, talking fishing, and you guys start talking back and forth, and you're like, they're telling you how they've caught fish in the past, and how they're catching fish, and you tell them, well, hey, this is how I fish, and I caught some fish here yesterday. Well, I'm gonna go try what they told me, and they're gonna go try what I told them. Mm-hmm. And the next morning, we're sitting there cutting up, and we're like, hey, that worked. And they're saying, hey, it worked here too. So really, they're giving you a different perspective, and you're giving them a different perspective, and it's working both ways. So it's kind of neat to watch it unfold. And I've had guys all over, from northern Illinois. They're like, they'll call me, and what colors do you use? Well, these are the colors I used up there. Go out there and try them. And a week later, they call me like, hey, we put a lemons box last week off that one jig. I'm like, that's awesome, and it works everywhere. I still have people to this day, and I haven't lived, like I said, I moved in July to Northeast Alabama, and I still have people to this day call me and, hey, I know you fish this lake almost every day for 6 months. What are the fish doing there right now? And I'll tell them, go up this creek, look on this flat, or go to this point on the main lake and work from there up about 300 yards, turn around and go in this, this pocket. And I'll get a phone call at night, and they're like, how did you know that brush was there and it's still there and there's fish on it this time of year and you haven't been here in 6 months? Well, for one, I know those fish. They were there when I left them. There's no reason for them to leave, and no one knew that stuff was there. So that's the best part. And knowing I can still help those guys, and they call me, and I still answer their phone and tell them, hey, go check that. At the end of the day, they call me and, hey, we caught a limited fish. We appreciate it. So that's what I love about it. I try to be humble, and that's I've just learned through the last couple of years. The more you can be humble, the better it's going to be for you.
That's beautiful.
Shiloh, before we get out of here tonight, there's something that I really wanted to have you discuss with people that are listening. And as you know, there was a guy one time that talked to me. He actually wrote a book, and it was about golf. And he showed me a picture of a Reader's Digest one time, and it showed all the things that can go wrong in a golf shot. All right, and you guys are going to see where I'm going with this. And it was like so confusing. It was crazy. Well, he came out with a book called Hit the Ball. All right. All right. So most of us, and his point is that most of us that are out there golfing, we just want to hit the ball. All right. And just have a good shot. I'm not trying to backspin it. I'm not trying to do all these other things. I just want to hit the ball. Most of us crappie fishermen, I think, are like us,
Yeah.
and we're not, we're not as good as you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
you just want to catch a fish.
yeah.
That's
So
exactly.
talk
Go ahead.
to our listeners right now about, hey, you're fishing a farm pond. You know, you're going out to catch some crappie. You love catching crappie because you love to eat them. You know, what are the basic? I mean, you got your Zebco. What do you need?
Yeah.
Like, walk us through it.
If I'm going to go fish a farm pond, it's going to be just a spinning rod and reel. It doesn't have to be some crazy slide action like most people think. I mean, even some of your lower end spinning bass rods, they'll work just fine. Anywhere from 5.5 to 7 foot spinning reel or underspin with 6 to 8 pound line. Still, I think Walmart still carries them. They're called road runners. They're just a little bitty bladed jig head, and anywhere from 16th to 8th ounce, and get you a variety of jigs or slip corks and minnow hooks and a bucket of minnows. And if you're fishing a farm pond or any lake, find you some laydowns or brush or a grass line or something some sort of cover, and just fish for them. Go down the bank, cast that little road runner, that little bladed jig with a blackened chartreuse or a straight white or a silver, or any color that looks good, and cast and try different depths and count it down. And what I mean by count it down is, that bait, if it's an 1/8 ounce, it's going to fall about a foot every 2 seconds. So if you cast out there, say you're fishing, that farm pond's 10 foot deep, 12 foot deep, and you cast out to the center and count it down, count to 6 seconds, so you're about 3 foot deep, or count to 10 seconds, and you're about 5 foot deep. So, and then just bring it back slowly, and just do fan casts. And they're gonna, this time of year, if you're south of, I want to say, the middle of Tennessee and south, those fish are going to be thinking about spawning in farm ponds. They're going to be up shallower. They're going to be looking for somewhere to spawn. So they're going to be active. That's really all you need is just a light action rod, light test, and a couple jigs or a slip fork and minnows, and just have a good time. That's why we all started fishing, was just to get away and relax and catch fish, and that's where it's at. That's all you need.
That's right. Now, with the crappie, and I learned this the hard way. We call them all paper mouths. So
yeah.
I grew up setting the hook on a bass, and I did that and ripped the jaw and whole, like, everything off of a crappie. So as far as when they start to bite on your whatever you're fishing, help us through that.
So I kind of keep the drag just a little bit looser, but you do have to play them. They are paper mounts. It's not like a marlin. I'm sitting here driving, and I'm picturing Tony setting the hook on a crappie. The only thing running through my mind is that crappie going about 65 feet in the air and then coming down on the bank somewhere in a parking lot. Because I can see it already. I know how that would go. But,
it's somewhere off the banks of Horseshoe Lake somewhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If you're close to Florida, there's probably one floating around at sea right now that you set the hook on. I can only imagine. Saltwater fish are swimming by going, what the hell's that thing? But no, you don't have to set the hook on them hard, and you don't have to fight them like you would a largemouth. You got to be easy with them. They do have that thin mouth, but a lot of times if they're eating the jig good, you're going to get that jig head in a good spot, or that hook and the shank of the hook in a good spot. And unless they're big fish, you don't have to play them too well. But if they're bigger, you'll know right away as soon as you set the hook on that lighter action that it's a bigger fish. And you'll play it, and just when you get it up close to the bank, just try to slide it up on the bank so it don't roll around on the surface, because that's the last thing you want. When those big crappie, they've got an act. I wish I could figure it out. When they start rolling around on the surface, they know how to, like, throw that jig jig head out, if I could always figure out how to keep, I almost need a hook that's got 4 hooks on it, all different directions. So when they spin or do whatever they do, I just hook them again. It would be amazing. So if there's anybody that listens that designs hooks, that would be great. But yeah, you don't need anything this time of year. Nothing fancy. You get it in front of them, they'll eat it. And, I mean, we're getting close to spawn too, so really.
The spawn's like the rut, right? It's like the rut.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, those males that come up and lay eggs, and if you get that jig or minnow anywhere near that nest where that male's guarding those eggs, he's gonna smash it. He's just because he doesn't want anything to interrupt those eggs. He wants them to hatch, and he's being protective. But a lot of people don't know this, but old waxworms, I mean, they look like maggots, but they live in wood shavings.
Yep.
During the spawn, there's something about those male crappie that they absolutely hate those things, and they will annihilate them. It's wild.
Waxworms.
Yeah, waxworms on just a little bitty jig. You know, just tip it on a jig, and they'll crush it. It's a lot of fun. So, but you don't need nothing crazy. It's old school fishing, and that's what I love about crappie. You know, you can still go out to a farm pond with a cane pole or a Zebco 33 and a bobber and a minnow and catch them, and you don't need nothing fancy. You know, if I wanted to take all the electronics off my boat and go catch crappie, I could still do it. I could go shoot docks or find a lay down on the bank and just sit out there and fish. You know, throw an anchor out and just drop a minnow over the side of the boat or cast a jig up there to that tree and catch them.
Sure.
And that's the best thing. Is, you know, being able to get away and relax. And going on that last Saturday on Gunnersville, it's been a long time since I've been able just to go fish, and I had a day, and I called a guy up, never fished with him before, and I said, hey, if you want to go, I'll be at this boat ramp at 8 o'clock. You can hop in the boat with me. I don't care just if you want to come. 8 o'clock, he's standing on the dock waiting on me.
Beautiful.
And it was awesome. We went out, and I think we had 60 fish by 11 o'clock.
Wow.
And it was just, and I didn't care how big they were on the screen. I was like, I'm just catching fish. He was catching fish, and this guy doesn't have a boat or nothing. And watching him just thoroughly enjoy catching fish made me put in perspective, like, I get to do this almost every other day. This guy gets to do this once a month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stinking lucky.
Yeah,
you know?
That's got to be refreshing.
It is, and he still texts me. He's like, dude, that was so much fun. I can't wait to go again. And I'm like, and I told him when we left, I'm like, anytime I'm going fun fishing, you're more than welcome to come. I said, I don't care if you see me floating around the lake. You call me and say, hey, pick me up at the boat ramp. I'll show up and pick you up. I don't care. And that's what it's all about to me, is just getting more people out there into it and having fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's a great point, man. I mean, it is all about having fun and just enjoying the great outdoors and what God's provided us and stuff. Shiloh, so before we get out of here, I'm going to put a challenge on you, and I'm going to put it on Tristan right now. I'm putting you both on the spot. We are going to take you duck hunting, but you got to take us to crappie fishing to some of these honey holes, bro. We got to go out and smash them.
Hey, I'm on.
One thing I was
You can stay at my house. Let's go do Lake Lanier. In 15 minutes, we'll have the boats in.
And one thing I was thinking, Shiloh, that we could do is, you know, we're not like, you know, professional, like, you know, filmers by any means, but like we do all right with what we got. And I can edit pretty much anything. So we could probably figure out something where we could meet up to fish sometime this spring or summer and, you know, just get all kinds of whatever kind of content you want to do, you know?
Yeah, we'll do some filming for you.
It's good for us too, because it's good practice and, you know, whatever.
Oh yeah,
it's all about telling story.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And in 15 years, when Tony, how old are you now, Tony? 50?
Yep. Not until I won't be 51 until the 25th of this month, which is several days away.
So when that's the cool, that's the cool thing. We all get out and go fish in 15 years when hopefully Tristan, you beat me to having a kid, but my wife, she's baby hungry. I don't know about all that. So, we all go fish and, you got little Tristan running around and you could tell him, hey, 15 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, we all went fishing and had a good old time. And, hopefully I'm still doing it. We're all still around and I can take all three of you out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, and I could even take that to a deeper level and be like, 40 years ago, your fathers used to smash people's heads in East St. Louis on Little League football.
Yeah, exactly. Pee-wee football, and yeah, exactly. That's the cool thing, and that's what I was saying earlier. You've got to watch Tristan and I grow up and become who we are now, and you were coaching us when we were 8 and 9, and who would have thought that where we are now is where we'd ended up.
Yeah,
Sure.
man, what a great podcast.
And that's the crazy thing, because you coached all of us. You've got Zach, Clocky, Tristan, your own son Tristan, and Travis, and
Oh yeah.
The entire group. You've watched us all grow up over the years and become who we are now, and
it's one of the best things about becoming a man, quite honestly. And looking, hindsight's 20/20 always, right? And the older you get as a man or a woman, I think that you look back and you just go, wow. It just gives you it's all about perspective, right? It really is. I could live all my life and just be a jackass and so self-centered that I never got to enjoy the success or the smiles or the tears or whoever it is that I've been a part of in my life. And it's a very gratifying. And y'all are some good young men. And I just can't wait to see. Dude, you are going to be I think your last name is going to be, I think it's going to be Shiloh Van Dam. I really do, bro. You're
I wouldn't go that far.
Somebody like yourself. But
I just want to cruise by and be thankful for what I've got.
But somebody like yourself that is taking it to the level that you're doing so quickly. And we just talked about this on a couple podcasts ago about embracing the younger generation. Y'all are so smart and you're also motivated to be successful. And it just keeps blowing my mind, the wisdom and the success that the younger generation has compared to what a 20-something-year-old person did when I was in my 20s. Y'all are really embracing it, and I'm excited to see about I can't wait to see that big old gut crappie again. That's get on there right now, y'all, and check out this thing. It looks like it swallowed 4 bullfrogs.
Well, yeah, hopefully soon I can get both of y'all out there to catch one and get a good picture of both of y'all holding 4 big ones up with guts.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome, man. Hey, and
dude, you just tell us when, and we will drop what we're doing to embrace your time and do it.
And let's put it this way: we're not duck hunting until I guess November. So
if you don't invite us, if you don't invite us between now and early teal season, Shiloh, we're not going to have you back on the podcast.
I tell you what, them teal birds are my favorite to eat.
That's right.
Best eating birds. Goodness gracious.
Well, bro, we'll put you on them. Oh, well, I'll tell you this. I can't say we'll put you on them, but we'll put you in the best position to be successful.
Hey, I'm game. So, but yeah, now that y'all, like you said, we're only 3 hours from each other, so it shouldn't be too hard to set something up.
Sure.
Even a long weekend or just a weekend, it would be a lot of fun just to get out and catch a mess of fish, and so y'all can take them home, and Tristan can humble us with his outdoor cooking. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, I would love to do that, man. It's been a long time since I've been able to when we catch a few of them back here in my parents, but we catch bass all day long, but it's hard for us to catch crappie consistently. I don't know what it is, but there's times I remember growing up where it wasn't nothing to go out to a pond and catch, 60, 70 of them between 2 or 3 people. But one thing I had to ask you before we get off here is, does it weird you out when Florida people call crappie specks?
No, I've heard them called crappie, speck, sockeye, paper mouth. And I mean, I've heard them called everything, and nothing weirds me out at this point anymore. Honestly, I take that back. Probably the weirdest thing them being called is a lot of people from Alabama call them crappie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just stop.
Yeah.
You guys just need to quit. Like, yeah, just go drink another beer, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I
call
mean?
them crappie, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I grew up. I'd rather call you, you call them speck. Just stop.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and that's the neat thing about being able to travel. Their own name for them. So white perch, it's different. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, man, we appreciate you giving us so much of your time. I know you're on the road, so I'm sure it's always nice when you get on the road and you can kill some time on a phone call. I know that, and
exactly.
We really appreciate it, man. We learned a ton.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Hopefully, you can teach me some more about duck hunting.
Yeah,
I don't know diddly squat about it. So,
well, I
appreciate it, and like you said, the killing time is. I think I'm 10 minutes from the house we're staying at, so it actually worked out perfect. And
oh, great, man!
Hopefully, everybody that listens can learn something, and if they've ever got a question, reach out to you. You can pass them on my phone number or whatever else, and I'd be more than happy to answer it. So
that brings up a great point. Shiloh, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can follow you. Give a shout out to some of the folks that support you.
Yeah, so they can follow me or like my page on Facebook or Instagram. It's just Shiloh Shoppell Fishing. I believe I've got my phone number on there, so I'm always on Facebook, so they can shoot me a message or call me, get a hold of me any way through there or Instagram. And then the companies that support me is Jinko Fishing. They brought me on last year, and it's been amazing to work with. Pops Jigs out of Southern Illinois, the guy that runs that, I've given him a ton of business, and he's taken excellent care of me. I can't thank him enough. He's done above and beyond for me. There's been days where I find a jig that's working, and I call him and say, hey, I need a dozen of these overnighted to me, and I'm pretty sure he's cussed me up and down a couple times on the phone, but those jigs show up the next day, and I can't thank him enough. Wow. I owe him tremendously. He goes above and beyond for me. Canine Fishing out of Tennessee, I use his line, and Bojangles Baits out of Central Missouri. I picked him up this year for plastic baits, and he's gone above and beyond for me. I've been pushing him a lot, trying to get him some new bait shops and help him out. And it's starting to pay off. So those companies and my Facebook pages, I've been trying here recently to do videos and recaps of tournaments on where I was at, just to give locals or somebody that's traveling to that lake, they can see that, and hit the follow button, see what I was using, how I was catching those fish, and
sure.
kind of get a rundown on what to do. So that's about it.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's good. That's good stuff.
Well, I think there's only action. Action speaks louder than words. And I am a FOMO type of person. And I feel like wherever you're going right now, I'm missing out. So let's do this. I mean, seriously, we've got way more time off than you do. And so we're going to bug the shit out of you and figure out how, well, we're within 3 hours of each other. We just got to make it happen. And the first night we'll just plan on having a lot of beer. And,
exactly.
And then after,
I tell you,
after that, we'll fish.
If I'm not tournament fishing, I work a part-time delivery job, and I've gotten so good in, like, that was the best thing. When I left Wood River in Illinois, I went from a job that I had to be at every day because, I worked in 911 dispatching. So when I left that and all the stress of that, and I got hired at this other job in Alabama, they've made me feel like I'm part of their family, and it's been awesome. I call them and say, hey, I'm not going to be there tomorrow. I've got to do this. They're like, okay, no problem. And
Wow.
that's having a company that like actually wants you to chase your dream has been the best. And I can't thank them enough. So that's been one thing. So whenever y'all come or you find a weekend that you want to come, if I'm not at a tournament, all I got to do is tell them, hey, I'm not gonna be at work, and they'll be cool with it. So I'm game.
That's awesome, man.
Right on.
We'll get to brainstorming and get something your way before too long.
All right, bud.
Yep.
Man, thanks so much.
appreciate it.
We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy man, and we support you on your continued success, man. Just keep doing what you're doing, bud. And thank you so much for being on here tonight.
Thank y'all. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks.
All right, brother. Bye.
See ya.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.